Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. This image demonstrates just what can be achieved with a simple one light setup. With careful staging and attention to basic lighting techniques, it's possible to focus the attention of the viewer precisely where you want it. And in this video I'll show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so this is what I've got set up so far. I've just placed this old log on a table, and what I'm going to do is build up the rest of the set around it. So in order to give me a bit of height at the front here, I'm just going to place a few offcuts of wood, and the idea is that I'm going to build up a platform, and then on that platform I'll place some leaves. You'll see what I mean as I carry on. So I'll just place a few more bits of wood around, and then I'm just going to cover all those with some black cloth. There we are. So that just goes on there like that. And then on top of here, I can just throw on some leaves. Pop those on the cloth like that. There we go. That's the sort of thing. So now that I've got all that prepared, I can place the main subject, which is a couple of apples. And on purpose, I've picked ones which aren't really in their best condition. The idea is that they've fallen down and we're just taking some pictures of them. Okay, so I'll just place these just in the scene here. There we go. We might need to do a bit of careful arrangement a little later. But that's the sort of idea. Okay. So with that all set, we can move on to the camera. Now I'm using a medium format camera which has a 120mm macro lens on the front of it. So in full format terms, the equivalent field of view you can get out of a 75mm lens, something like that. And this camera is tethered into Capture One software, so it's easy to follow along and see the results as I get them. Okay, so I've placed my tripod at the front here, and what I'm going to do, just place this on here and initially just focus up the shot. So just looking down the viewfinder, I'll just get a rough focus, somewhere around there. And with that, I can turn the camera on. There we are. And the software has recognized the camera, and I can see all the settings that I've got on the camera on the software here. So at the moment it's in full manual mode. I've got a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second, ISO 400, and at the moment I've got an aperture set of f4, which is wide open for this particular lens. I'll probably change that to give me a different depth of field, but we'll see how we go. So initially what I'm going to do is just use the house lights for illumination and just get a test image. So just with those settings, I'll grab an image and see what we get. Okay, so for a test image, that's not too bad. The exposure's okay, but one of the things I think I'd like to change is the general composition. I don't think it's quite tight enough. So what I'm going to do is just move the camera forward a little. So I'll just use the control on the tripod here just to reframe it. Something like that. There we go. Okay. So now what I can do is just reassess the focus since I've moved it further forwards. And to do that, I'm just going to use Live View. So I'll just open up Live View here, and I can zoom into the area of interest, which in this case will be the apple, and just move the focus point on the lens. There we go. Now if I just move over here slightly, yes, you can see I'm at the back edge of the apple here, so I just need to come a little bit further forwards, like that. So we can dispense with Live View. We'll just grab another image. Yes, now that's much better. The whole thing is a bit tighter. This one was just a bit too far removed. So this is a better composition, and I like the occlusion that I've got at the front here with these other leaves. But I think the overall depth of field that I've got is a bit limited, like we said. So what I'm going to do is change the aperture So I'll go from f4, and initially we'll just change it to 5.6 and see what difference that makes. Now that's obviously just one stop, so in order to give me something like the same sort of exposure, I'm going to increase the ISO from 400 to 800. Okay. There we are. So this is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. But I think I need a bit more. So I'm going to do the same thing again, from 5.6 to f8. And I'll change the ISO and double that again, which will give me the same exposure. There, that's better. That's the sort of thing I want. So this is what we had with 5.6. This is what we had with f4. And this is what we've got with f8. So f8 is the right aperture to give me the right depth of field for that sort of composition. But obviously, for the proper picture, I don't want to use just the house lights. It's far too bland, and it's not giving me the sort of quality of light that I want. So what I need to do now is change all these settings so that I cut out all of this house lighting. So the only light that I'm left with will be the light which I actually add from Studio Flash. So the first thing to do would be to change the ISO, and I can take that down to a more reasonable 100, and I can change the shutter speed for the flash sync speed for this camera, and those two changes alone should cut out all of the available light. So we'll just grab an image and hopefully that will be black. There we are. Excellent. So now I have control. What I can do now is think about what I'm going to do for lighting this by flash. So I've just got a C stand here, just with a small flash head in it. And this is about 250 joules, so it's about the same energy as a large flash gun or speed light. So let's just pop this up in the air a little. There we go. And we'll just point it down at the subject, something like that. So just at an arbitrary energy level, what I'll do, grab an image and we'll see what we get. Okay, so initially the exposure looks down a little, so let's just sort that out first. So what I need to do is add a bit more energy. I think maybe 1-2 stops, something like that. Let's add 2 stops of energy and see what it looks like. To do that, I can use the flash sync trigger, which on this camera is built in. So I'll just bring up the flash sync trigger, select that light, and add 1-2 stops. There we go. And I'll just grab that again. Yes, there we go. So the exposure's good now, but the quality of the light here isn't quite what I want yet. So what I'm going to do is move the light a lot closer. What that will do is actually soften it slightly. As we are at the moment, this flash head is about 100 millimeters across, and this distance is about 5 times that. So this will approximate to a point light source. If you look at the shadows that we're getting here, they're all a bit hard. So by bringing this closer, what I'll actually do is soften the light. So let's just move this down a little, perhaps to about there, and I'm just going to push this in and put it more across the top of the subject. There we are. Now, as I've moved this quite a lot closer, due to the inverse square law, I'm going to need to shed some energy, otherwise it will be overexposed. So I'm going to start by taking off those 2 stops that I added before. So that's the flash. 1, 2. There we go, and we'll just grab that again. Okay, so that's starting to get there, I think. It's possibly a little bright, but the quality of the light is definitely getting better. So I just want to change it a little more. So what I'm going to do is add this reflector. Now what this will do is concentrate the beam a little, but it will also make it appear larger, which will soften it even more. So because I've concentrated the beam, I'm going to need to probably take off one stop of energy. It's a bit bright anyway, so I'll start by just taking one stop off. So I'll bring up the flash sync trigger and just take one stop off. There we go, and we'll just grab that again. Yes, now that's really starting to make quite a large difference. So this is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. Okay, so it's definitely getting there, just needs a few more minor adjustments. First of all, I think I'm just going to get this a bit closer, and looking at the image here, I think I might just bring it forwards ever so slightly. So I'll just drop that down a bit, and at the same time just move it forwards. There we go. Now again, because of moving it closer, I'm going to take some more energy out just to compensate for that. Bring up the flash sync trigger and just take half a stop off. There we go, and I'll just grab that again. There, and I think that attention to detail has worked very well. So we've gone from something like that to what we have now. And that's purely down to moving the light and getting the exposure about right. Okay, so there's just one or two more little things I want to do. One would be just to remove this branch here. I think that's a little distracting. And the other thing would be just to add generally some dew. And I'm going to do that just with a spray here, just with water. So let's just move that branch out of the way. And we'll just add a little dew. There. See what that's like. Yes, I think that's added quite a lot to the image actually. So this is what we had before, and this is what I've got now. So I think that's worked very well. Okay, so for actually capturing the image, that's it. What I'm going to do now is just go into Photoshop and do the bare minimum of post-production. So here we are in Photoshop, and I've loaded up the file of the image that I captured earlier. So the first thing I want to do to this is just make a copy of this file so I can edit the copy and leave the original alone. So the way I prefer to do that is just to go onto the background layer here, right click the mouse, ask for a duplicate layer, but ask for a new document. And we'll just call this Leaves. There we go. So now I've got a new document here called Leaves. I can close down the camera original. I've always got that to go back to. This is the one that I'll be editing. Okay, so the first thing I want to do to this is just to add a crop. Now I'm going to use this for video, so I'm going to use a specific ratio. So if I just go onto the cropping tool here, I can then use the drop-down list here and go to 16:9. Which is the ratio that I'll be using. There we are. So now I can just position the image as I want it within that frame. Something like that's fine, I think. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is just concentrate the image a little. And the way I want to do that is just to vignette the edges. There are lots and lots of different ways to do this. But one method would be just to go onto the adjustments here, add an adjustment layer, and just add an exposure adjustment layer. So if I just take the exposure down and also just change the gamma, which is the contrast really, something like that. And now activate the mask associated with that adjustment, and I can just invert that mask. There we are. So the adjustment is still there, but it's hidden by the mask. So wherever I paint in white on this mask, we'll bring that adjustment through. So just make sure that white is selected as the foreground colour. Grab a paintbrush, and this time I want it very soft and very large. There we are. And I can just start at the corners and just bring that adjustment in. There we are. Now I prefer this way because it does give you an awful lot of control. You can be quite precise about where it's going to go and just what it's going to do. There we are. something like that. So that's with the adjustment and that's without it. And there we have it. So by applying technique to a simple one light setup, it's possible to achieve a really good quality of light. Okay, well I hope you liked watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.